Let's practice finding the perimeter of rectangles when we're just given their ordered pairs or coordinates of their vertices together. For number 1, we have points A, B, C, and D, and we're going to go ahead and just label these so we can plot these on a graph as well so we can visually see this rectangle that we're dealing with here. Now let's go ahead and just plot these points so we can visually see where this rectangle is. So for point A, let's go 4 units to the left and then 5 units up, somewhere over here in quadrant 2. For point B, we can go 6 units to the right and then 5 units up, so we can see it is next to point A to the right of it. And then for point C, we're going to start the origin, move 6 units to the right until we're directly below point B, and then we'll move 3 units down, maybe somewhere like that. And then for point D, looks like we have a negative negative, so we'll move to the left 4 units below point A, and then down so that we're next to point C. Now just making a rough sketch and connecting these points or vertices, whatever you want to call them, we're going to go ahead and get a rectangle. All right, now remember, we are finding the perimeter of these rectangles, so that's just going to be the outside, so we're not finding area. We're going to figure out the length all the way around here, right? All the way on the outside. To do that, we're going to go ahead and use the formula perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Now it's totally up to you, but I'm going to call the lengths this AB and DC, so there's 2 of those. And I'm going to call the width AD and BC, so there's 2 of those. All right, so let's start with the length, which is going to be AB here. Okay, so AB, let's go ahead and take a look at these 2 points. Notice they have matching Y values, so they have this 5 and 5 that are matching. So let's just compare this -4 and 6. They're in different quadrants, so let's add their absolute values. So to figure out how long segment AB is, we're going to go ahead and add the absolute values of their non-matching coordinates. So we'll do the absolute value of -4 plus the absolute value of 6. The absolute value of -4 is 4. The absolute value of 6 is 6. So 4 plus 6, that's going to equal 10. So we can say that's going to be 10 units for length AB. So this length of 10 units is the length of AB and DC. They're the same length. And so we can go ahead and say that this 10 units, we'll call that the length of this rectangle. Now let's go ahead and find the width. We can either do BC or AD. They're both going to be the same. I'm just going to go ahead and use BC since they're next to each other up here. So they have matching X values. So they both have 6s. So let's just look at their non-matching values of 5 and -3. They're in different quadrants. So let's go ahead and add their absolute values just like we did for AB. So for BC, that's going to be, the length of it is going to be the absolute value of -3 plus the absolute value of 5. The absolute value of -3 is 3, the absolute value of 5 is 5, so 3 plus 5 means that the length of BC has to be 8 units long. Oh, and we can call that the width, right? So we already called the other one the length, so we'll call this one the width. So we've just found out that length AB is 10 units, DC is also 10 units, BC is going to be 8 units, and AD is also 8 units. So all the way around, we really just have 2 of each of those. So we can say the perimeter is going to be 2 of whatever the length is, so 2 times 10 units, and then plus 2 of whatever the width is, which we said was 8 units, right? So 2 10 units, or 2 times 10, that's going to be 20 total units for the top and bottom. 2 times 8 is going to be 16, so we have 16 total units. Now altogether, that should be 36 units all the way around. That would be the perimeter for this rectangle. Here's number 2. For number 2, we have points E, F, G, and H. So we have 4 different points as well. This is going to be another rectangle. So we have E, F, G, and H, just labeling those points. And then let's just go ahead and make a quick sketch so we see what we're looking at here. So point E is going to go 6 units to the right and then 3 units up, maybe something like this. For point F, we'll start the origin, move 6 units to the right, so we're right underneath E, and then we'll go down 7 units, so maybe over here. For point G, let's start the origin, move 2 units to the right, and then we'll move 7 units down, so it's going to be next to F over there to the right. We can move this down maybe a little bit more. Nope, maybe too much. Let's move up a little bit, okay? And then H, let's go ahead and move to the right 2 units, so it's above G, but then move up so it's next to E. So we're dealing with a rectangle here. Then I'm just going to go ahead and sketch a rectangle. So I'm going to do my best to kind of just draw a rectangle connecting these dots, or these vertices, or these corners, whatever you want to call them. So again, we are dealing with perimeter here, so perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So we need to find out what the length and the width are, okay? I'm gonna call HE and GF the length in this problem, so let's go ahead and figure out those ones, okay? So for HE and GF, let's go ahead and use GF since they are right next to each other, okay? And notice they have matching Y values, they're -7s match, so we just have to figure how far 6 and 2 are from each other. So they're in the same quadrant as you can see over here, so let's just go ahead and subtract their absolute values, okay? So the length of segment GF is going to be the difference. So we're going to take the absolute value of 6 and then take away the absolute value of 2, the difference of their absolute values. The absolute value of 6 is 6, the absolute value of 2 is 2. 6 minus 2 is going to be 4, so we know the length of GF, which is over here, is 4 units, which means HE also has to be 4 units. Now it doesn't matter if you call this the length or the width, but I'm going to call it the length. Now for the width, let's either use EF or HG, doesn't matter, they're both the same. Now I notice that EF are next to each other, so the distance between these, they have matching X values, so if we just look at their Y values, 3 and -7 are in different quadrants, so let's add their absolute values. All right, so we have the length of EF, let's go ahead and add the absolute value of 3 to the absolute value of -7, okay? The absolute value of 3 is 3, and the absolute value of -7 is 7, so 3 plus 7, that's going to be a total of 10 units. And that is going to be the width here, or how wide this rectangle is. Depends on which way you're looking at it, but that we have the length and the width. So let's go ahead and plug these into our formula. So we can say we have 2 of the 4 units, so 2 times 4 units. Again, we have 4 units up here and 4 units down here. You can do 4 plus 4 if you want as well. Plus you can say we have 2 of the width, so 2 times 10 units, right? So the EF was 10 and HG was also 10. So you could say 10 plus 10 or just 10 times 2. So 2 of these 4 units is really 8 units and 2 of these 10 units is 20 units. So if you add up total altogether, we have 28 units all the way around the rectangle. All right, that would be the perimeter. Here's number 3. For number 3, it looks like we have another rectangle since we have 4 different vertices or 4 different points. Let's just go ahead and label them as point A, B, C, and D. All right, so making a rough sketch here, we have point A, that's going to be 6 units to the right, and then it's going to be 5 units down over here. And then for point B, let's go with 6 units to the right, so it's above A, but then let's move up 4 units, so it's going to be in quadrant 1. And then we have point C, which is going to move 2 units to the left into quadrant 2, I guess, and then we're going to move up, right? So that's going to be 4 units, so it should be next to where B is to the left. And then finally for point D, let's move 2 units to the left below C, and then move 5 units down, so it is to the left of where point A is. Alrighty, so connecting these corners or these vertices of this rectangle, we should get this rough sketch here. Again, just like in the last couple examples, we're finding perimeter, which is going to be twice the length plus twice the width. We have 2 of each of those. And so let's go ahead and see. I'm going to call the length here BC or CB. That's going to be the length, and AD or DA, I'll call that the length as well. So let's see here. We have BC up here. Let's see how far apart are they from each other. Well, they have matching Y values. And so let's go ahead and just compare their X values. Now they're in different quadrants, so let's add their absolute values. So let's go ahead and see the length of BC is going to be, let's add the absolute values of their non-matching numbers. So that's going to be the absolute value of 6 plus the absolute value of -2. The absolute value of 6 is going to be 6, and the absolute value of -2 is 2. So 6 plus 2 is 8, so that's going to be 8 units. Okay, so this is what I'm going to call the length of this rectangle. Now, what about the width? That's going to be AB or CD, whichever one you want to use. I'm going to use AB here, so let's see how far apart A and B are from each other. They have matching 6s, or the X values, so let's look at their Ys. 5 and -4, or sorry, -5 and +4, those are going to be 9 apart from each other if you add their absolute values. So let's see, AB is going to be the absolute value of -5 plus the absolute value of +4. Now that's going to be 5 plus 4, so that confirms it. We get a total of 9 units apart. Okay, so that's going to be what our width is here. That's how wide this rectangle is. So we have the length, we have the width. Let's go ahead and substitute into our formula. So we have 2 of the 8 units, so 2 times 8 units, plus 2 times 9 units. Now 2 eighths gets us 16 units, and then 2 times 9 is 18 units. And so 16 plus 18 gets us a total of 34 units all the way around this rectangle. That would be the perimeter. Okay, so labeling this as well, we could see that BC would be 8 units here, AD would be 8 units. I know it's not drawn to scale, so the 9 kind of looks a little shorter maybe, but that's okay, it's just a rough sketch. All right, so for number 4, it looks like we have one final example, but they have 4 points. We have D, E, F, and G. Go ahead and label those first. And it looks like we have some fractions in here as well, so some different rational numbers. So let's see if we can work with those okay. All right, so for point D, right, we're gonna move 3.5 units to the right and then 4 units up, so it's just a little bit higher than it is to the right. For point E, we're gonna start the origin and move 5 units to the left and then 4 units up, so really that should be to the left of point D, okay? And then for F, we're gonna start the origin and move 5 units to the left, right underneath E, and then we'll move 2.5 units down, okay? And then for point G, we'll go 3.5 units to the right, and then we'll move 2.5 units down. So it's beneath this point D, but it is also to the right of point F, maybe somewhere like here. Connecting each of these ordered pairs or these vertices for this rectangle, we should get a sketch that looks something like this. Again, we're finding perimeter and it is a rectangle, so this is our formula we're going to use. We just have to figure out what the length and the width are. I'm going to call DE the length, or ED, and then FG or GF the length as well. So let's go ahead and figure out the distance between those 2 points. So let's see here. We have DE located here next to each other. They have matching Y values. So let's just look at their X values. It looks like one's negative, one's positive, so they're in different quadrants. So let's go ahead and take this DE and let's add the absolute values of their non-matching numbers. So we have the absolute value of 3.5 plus the absolute value of -5. The absolute value of 3.5 is still 3.5, and the absolute value of -5 is going to be +5. So 3.5 plus 5 is going to be 8.5, and that's going to be 8.5 units. Okay, so this right here would be the length of this rectangle. Okay, now what about the width? The width is going to be EF or DG, whichever one you want to use. I'll use EF just because they are next to each other over here. Okay, they have matching what? They have matching X values of -5. So let's just look at the 4 and the -2.5. Those are going to be their non-matching values, so we're going to add their absolute values here. Okay, so let's go ahead for EF. They're in different quadrants, so let's go ahead and add the absolute values of, let's see, 4, and then plus the absolute value of -2.5. Now the absolute value of 4 is 4, and the absolute value of -2.5 is +2.5. And then 4 plus 2.5 is going to be 6.5 units across there. All right, so that would be the width of this rectangle. So substituting these values in, we can say that we have 2 of the lengths, which is 2 of these 8.5s, right? And then plus 2 of these 6.5s. All right, so we have 2 of each of those. I'm just using parentheses to show the multiplication. Now when multiplying fractions, I'm just going to write this out even though you might be able to do it in your head. 2 is 2 over 1. 8.5 is the same thing as 17 halves units. And then over here we still have 2 over 1. And then 6.5 is the same thing as 13 halves units, right? Now if we're going ahead and multiplying these fractions, notice on the left side, we can cross cancel these 2's. So if we cross cancel the 2's, you're just going to be left with 17 units. And if you were thinking doubling 8.5 is 17, then that makes sense, hopefully. And then over to the right, these 2's will also cross cancel. So we're just going to be left with 13 units, which is 13 is double 6.5. Okay, so 17 plus 13 is a total of 30 units. And that would be the perimeter all the way around this rectangle. Alrighty, so there you have 4 different practice problems on finding the perimeter of rectangles just given their vertices or their ordered pairs of the corners. And I hope you found this video helpful. And as always, keep up the great work, and I'll see you in the next one.